Hello friends and welcome back in. Well, we're starting off a brand new series here, and this time we're going back to the Pacific in World War II. Maybe the centerpiece on this will be the Fine Molds Japanese Hago, the Type 95 kit. Opening up the box here. Not a lot involved in this kit, not a lot of parts here. As you can see, it's fairly sparse in terms of the number of sprues and parts. Let's take a quick look through the instruction booklet here, see if there's any surprises, anything we need to look out for. This all looks fairly straightforward. I don't think we're going to foresee any problems. Probably a very quick build, matter of fact, so looking forward to that. 95 dug into one of these embankments, so once the Shermans and things like that became involved in the Pacific Theater, there were the Hagos, the 95s were just no match for those, so they began digging them into, bunkers or emplacements here. So I'm gonna want to portray that as we start moving forward in this project when we get far enough along in this project to start working about the diorama. Construction, as I mentioned, was very quick and fairly easy, let's put it that way. Not a lot to do here. I'm not putting on any aftermarket here. Very little in terms of conversion. Well, this is really the only conversion that I'm doing. I'm just kind of bending up some of these fenders using my flat pliers. We've done this before. Just take care. Make sure they don't have ridges on your pliers. They actually are flat on the surface. And just kind of bend them around without trying to tear the plastic. And once you get something that looks a little bit bent or warped or whatever your personal satisfaction level might be, then it's just a matter of gluing them in place. Well, this is kind of one of those videos where we're getting started, but this is very much a work in progress. I already feel like I'm behind, so we've got a lot to do here. Now, I just looked at my channel, and apparently the propaganda channel has 120 videos already on screen there. So if you haven't checked those out, please do. But more importantly, at this moment, I've decided to change things up a bit. Most of my painting has been done with the AK Real colors. This time we're going to be using the AK Gen 3 colors, the acrylic colors. And there's a purpose for this, and we'll get into that in just a little bit here. But first, just lay down some base colors here. This is simulating the dry grass color. It's a little bit lighter, I know that. But of course, we're going to be able to tweak that a bit through the weathering and the painting process a bit. So now let's take a look at some of the other stars of the show. I do have this set from the body, I guess it is. I'm not sure exactly how to pronounce it. A couple of nice Marines. And then left over from the Stewart diorama we did a few episodes ago. Check it out if you haven't seen it. I have this other fellow that came with the Panzer Art series, so we may paint him up. Well, I will paint him up, and we'll figure out exactly how we're going to compose this scene a little bit later on. But at this point, like I said, it's still kind of a work in progress. We'll figure it out as we go along, but I want to make sure I have the components needed. So nice resin set here. It looks crisply detailed. The resin looks really nice, and I'm looking forward to getting started. Now, speaking of getting started, if you just were with the M60 series, the last series I started painting figures using this white basing, the white primer, and then adding just a slight glaze or wash of a light blue over the flesh tones, trying to give a little bit more shadow dynamics to the shadowing. So I thought, well, and these guys aren't even wearing shirts, most of them, or have long, their sleeves cut off. So I thought, okay, let's really test out this idea here on a lot of flesh tones, not just the heads and faces, but we've got full bodies to test out this idea. So here we go. Got the white base colors going on there. We've got this light wash or glaze of this blue color. And to be quite honest, I've actually started working a little bit with purples lately, and I like that idea as well. I think I might, in the next ones, might try a little bit of more purple as the glazing compound. But at this point, I got my colors on, they're dry, and now start just matter of building up the flesh tones. Again, using extra light, very light glazes, just very thinned out glazes of the flesh color, just to slowly build up these colors and block out these flesh tones. Now, the interesting part about doing this type of a technique, and it's somewhat surprising, is once you get started, it seems like it takes forever to get things to catch, so the colors to start to build up. But once they do, once you have a little bit of texture there from the colors themselves, everything starts to move along fairly quickly. And of course, the benefit is that you have established your shadows and your highlights in there, and some of that subtleties from, say, the blues, or like I said, might start working with purples. And now, once this layer dries, now I can start coming back in smaller areas and start adding the highlights and even working on the shadows as well. Everything's kind of laid out for you, and it's all nice and smooth. I'm really liking this. I'm really enjoying this kind of an approach. I need more practice at it, obviously, but there's a lot here, and I think this is kind of the way that I want to start moving forward as I start working on my figures. I mentioned this in the prior video, the M60A3 series, is that I think part of my struggle with figure painting is that I tended to rush the process. And so I'm now learning, especially this glazing, this light wash idea really forces you to slow down a bit in terms of allowing each layer to dry completely before moving on. And so while I get to these points where I just need to set the figures aside and we'll move on to something different, which gives me the perfect opportunity to really go into why I started working with the Gen 3 colors, the acrylic colors for the base coat and what will be the camouflage on the Type 95. And yes, I'm going to brush paint the camouflage colors. So real colors, I love them as a spray color, as an airbrush color, but in terms of trying to paint with them, it's not the greatest idea. They are lacquer based, so you always risk that problem of, putting a layer on and pulling off the layer that's underneath. Acrylics, of course, you don't have that issue. Now, when you move from, say, airbrush painting to regular brush painting to try to do this kind of camouflage and those types of surfaces, there are a few kind of rules of the road, and most importantly, don't try to paint everything in one stroke. And the second one is, and I'm learning this, is that the AK thinner has a bit of a retarder in it. So that's why I'm using this to thin down my paints at this point, because it has a bit of retarder and it'll help smooth out the surface as I'm painting. Then it's just a matter of, in this case, I'm just blocking in these camouflage patterns using the brush. I do have some references off to the side that I'm sort of following. There's not a lot of great references for these vehicles, I have to tell you. So a lot of this is somewhat made up, so excuse me for that. And then once I have the outlines, basically, then I can come back into the center areas, and that's where the airbrush comes in. So still using the AK acrylics, same color mix, and just filling in those blocked out areas that I did by hand, just to fill them in and make them all look nice and smooth. And then, although I'm being as careful as I possibly can with the airbrush, there are certain areas that it kind of bled or overspread a little bit of overspray here and there. So it's got a bit of a feathered edge, easy enough to take care of. Just come back in with the paintbrush, tighten up those edges, just expand them out a little bit, give it that nice hard-edged brush painted feel. The brown colored camouflage is complete, and now it's time to move on to the green tones. Once again, mixing them up, and we'll do basically the same process here. We'll apply the green camouflage patterns here and there, make these blotches, get everything all nice and tight, and I'll come back in once again with the airbrush and fill in the interior areas of these green patches just to smooth everything out and unify the surface finish. Of course, the alternative to the hand painting and this airbrush kind of hybrid would be to airbrush everything, which would involve either masking or masking in some sort of way with either tape or maybe the masking putty, something like that, in order to get the hard edge camouflage. And I thought about doing that, but boy, the more I thought about it, the more it just seemed like that was going to be a lot of work. The hand painting seemed more attractive, and once I got started, it goes really much quicker than I actually anticipated. And I think, again, that hybrid between using the hand brushing to get the hard edges and then filling in the interiors with the airbrush was a really nice combination with nice results. I want to say thank you once again to my Patreon. It's through their generous support that this channel and these videos are able to be produced. If you enjoy this channel and you like these videos and the content that's provided here, please consider supporting it through Patreon. In exchange, early viewing of these videos, work in progress photographs, special feature videos for Patreon only, a Discord server where we can share our works amongst each other. Please consider supporting the propaganda channel through Patreon. Thank you. Well, now it's time to get back with our fellows here. So you can see I've got one of the guys, that Panzer dude. He's all painted out already, more or less. Still some work to do on him, but I need to get these other guys caught up. So we'll start working on their uniforms as well. So using some olive drab colors here, we'll be using some paint retarder as well. These are larger surfaces, so this gives me a little extra working time so things don't dry quite so quickly. And we'll be using the exact same process, just light washes or glazes of these colors, building in, blocking in those colors, and then we'll come back in towards the end of the process and start being a little bit more defined with the highlights and the shadows. In my mind, using this wash idea, especially like say on the uniforms here, you can only take it so far, because if I continue on, basically I'm just painting the figure and I lose all the highlights and the shadows. So we get to a point where the colors are blocked in, there's shadow colors where the paint has pooled in the recesses, and we have highlights on the top edges where the paint has run off a bit. And now we can come back in a more traditional method because it's all mapped out now. So now I can see exactly the highlights and the shadows. And now just adding a little bit of changing the color mixes a bit, I can really begin to accentuate all the surface details. And quite frankly, I wish I was disciplined enough to be able to just like paint the, like in this case, the skin tones and get that finished, and then paint the uniforms and get that finished. But as you'll see as the video rolls here, I tend to bounce around a bit. And this, I've talked about this before. I get things to about maybe 80% complete, and then I start trying to pull everything together. But it's not until I start, you know, for instance, I was working on the flesh tones quite a bit, but I really couldn't tell how they were going to look against once the uniforms were in place. So now that I have the uniform colors blocked in and they're starting to come to life, now I can really start working on the highlights and bringing out certain features and bringing it all up together. Well, I kind of mentioned this at the very beginning of this video, that this is very much a work in progress video, and as I mentioned, I'm already feeling very much behind the game now, because something about this video schedule, it's kind of tough to keep up with here. But we do have a good start. Basically, we have 3 figures ready to go. Of course, I'm still working on them. You can tell they're still work in progress. We have the Type 95 tank. He's fully camouflaged now, and we'll be able to start weathering on that. And then, of course, we'll be putting together a diorama base of some sort. I have to figure that out yet in the coming videos as well. I guess that's all a long way of saying I think we're at the end of this video, because I don't have much more content to show you. You have seen as far as I'm at as of right now. So I'll post up a few photographs of some of these figures as we've moved along here, and you can kind of see where they are through some snap photographs. If you do like this channel and you've enjoyed this video, please again hit that like and subscribe if you haven't done that already. If you like these videos and you want to support this channel even further, I do have that Patreon page, and the link for that is in the description below. And as I mentioned, a lot more to do. We're still kind of figuring this out. Let me know what you think in the comments. If you have some great ideas, post them down there. Maybe I'll be able to put them into this video as well. Until then, until we get started on the next one, take care everybody, and of course, happy modeling.